Welcome to the Transforming Assessment webinar series. In this session, we'll be looking at law debating in virtual classrooms. The presenters today are Pauline, a lecturer in law from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia, and Dr. Peter Evans from the Teaching and Learning Support Unit at also the University of Southern Queensland. The session was recorded on the 4th of November 2010, and the duration is approximately 1 hour and 5 minutes. So I'll now hand you over to Pauline, who will start off the session.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. And I should just add that it's actually a joint presentation. I'll be talking about the assessment and I guess the pedagogy that drives it, a little bit about the technology, but I have Dr. Peter Evans here also in the room next to me from the Learning and Teaching Support Unit, who is also going to do some of the presentation. Yes, I should put the slides up, shouldn't I? Okay, so it looks like a nice small group, which is nice. So I think we can keep things relatively informal and move on. I'm going to be talking about running a first-year law course in a new law degree in our university, University of Southern Queensland. We run it across 2 campuses. Peter just kindly turned the slide for me. I was about to do that. I just want to give a bit of an institutional context for a start to this degree. This course started in 2007, so we've been running it for 4 years, but the degree officially started in 2008. And I apologise, the statistics I have here for you is Qd 2008 and the Australian Law School statistics 2006, so they're a little bit old. It's a great deal of problems sometimes getting statistics out of the statistics department. But there you go. It gives you a bit of an idea that we're one of the leading distance education universities. So we have a large number of students that are off campus and a smaller number compared to the normal Australian Law School on campus. We also have a lot less students doing full-time study. And we have older students rather than the younger students. And I guess the other thing is the male gender is pretty similar, but there's a little bit of a difference in whether they're Australian born. So we have perhaps a more diverse student cohort. So we're actually dealing with quite a different student cohort from your normal Australian law school. And I think that's an important point to make up front, because that drove us a little bit in when we were determining and designing the curriculum and the course content and what we were going to do. So going to the particular course, this course, as I said, is a first-year course, and it's in legal theory and jurisprudence, and it's delivered both off-campus and on-campus at 2 locations that are 94 kilometres apart. I have changed the numbers there. It's been growing. Obviously, first year, 2007, we had about 70 to 80 students, and now we have up to just under 300 with the undergraduates and the postgraduates in the JD course. The JD course is a duplication, really, of the undergraduate course. What makes it a JD is it's offered to people who've got a prior undergraduate degree in another area. So our teaching team consists of 2 staff members, and we divide it into block teaching. So we deliver a 3-hour, very interactive style seminar workshop weekly, in both locations. So we travel from Toowoomba to Springfield. So we deliver it once here in Toowoomba and then in Springfield each week for 6 weeks, and then we swap over. Primarily, one of the reasons that I stopped teaching after 6 weeks is because then I'm heavily involved in the debate assessment. And because the way we have to run it, having about 280 students doing debates, it would probably be a little exhausting to also be delivering lectures on both campuses with such a distance. So it works quite well that way. So it's important for me. I like to just think, first of all, what is it I want the students to learn? And I think the value that drives me is critical thinking. I think if a student comes out of university without being able to question everything and think behind and not just take things at face value, then we haven't done them a service as a university. So that's what I'm aiming to do. So thinking from that perspective, I decided that I wanted to have a debate assessment, and it was a question then of how could I deal with that with external students? How could I get a quality assessment for external students? That's been a problem that USQ has been grappling with for a long time, and we've had different assessments, but what's changed all that is technology. And I thought, well, okay, there must be a tool out there that I can use that can satisfy my pedagogical needs. So I actually consider myself a bit technophobic or a Luddite, if you like, but that's why I have Peter on hand, and he's a wonderful man because he's just provided me with this lovely glass of water. It's not wine, unfortunately. Thank you, Peter. So yes, that's where we use the technology. Now, coming back to the next slide is the aim of the assessment. As I've said, is to provide the same learning experience for both off-campus and on-campus, and that was quite a new thing. And I believe that there are other law schools that are offering external courses, but they feel they can't assess oral communication skills, which is a very important graduate attribute and a particularly important one for law students. So we say to them, no, not a problem, we can do it, and we do it, and that's what we're talking about. So the graduate attributes we're particularly looking at, obviously, is oral communication, and with the teaching learning outcomes that Qld, the Council of Australian Law Deans, is looking at the moment, oral communication is a TLO 5, I think, and a very important graduate skill that we're looking for. Another one is teamwork. This doesn't just apply as a graduate attribute for law students, obviously, it's a graduate attribute for university students generally, and that's driven by employer demand that graduates from universities are capable of collaborating and working within teams. I've already talked about critical thinking, and that is absolutely vital for me, and I think for law students, that's one thing that I want them to start dealing with in first year. Tolerance and ambiguity are interesting ones. We have global citizenship as one of our attributes at this university, and I think because we have diverse students from diverse backgrounds, we have Sudanese students, we have Indigenous students, we have older students, young students. It's very important for them to start to get those skills in tolerance of the other, and there's nothing like teamwork that brings that out, and we've had quite a bit of success with that. The one ambiguity is an interesting one. Probably most people don't really think of that, but for lawyers, having the ability to be able to deal with ambiguous situations and hold judgment and wait until you get all the facts in is a very important skill for them, and obviously advocacy. So I think it's important early on for students to just get a taste test in first year about what is it like to stand and deliver an argument orally, to be thinking on your feet and listening and responding. So it is not speech presentation. It is actually being in the moment and listening and arguing. And I feel if we're going to take fees from them, it's no point in waiting till a fourth year course before you do mooting or advocacy for them to realise that they're terrified and they're just no good at it, and that's not really the thing for them. I should say at this point that we don't have just law students. My course is also has been a core course in a social science degree. So we have this nice mix of some social science students and some and law students, and they really bring different backgrounds to each other in those teams, and they actually learn to respect that and realise that they are coming from a different discipline area and they can contribute different things. So obviously what's achieved all this is it's really been facilitated by Wimba as a conferencing tool. I say that we did start with the limits. and I found that very good, but as a university we decided to go with Wimba. So I changed technologies from 2007 to 2008. I've probably already dealt with this. I'm not sure if we've got anyone there from the UK that would like to talk about their benchmarking experience, but as I've indicated, law is going through a lot of analysis at the moment about where we're going with our pre-SLE 12 and our teaching learning outcomes, and really we're looking for more skills in law students where they are learning what lawyers need to be able to do rather than the sort of positive law, appellate, black letter law justice, which is just the discipline content. And that's driven by employer demand. So. Peter, I'm sure if anyone has any questions, you're reading the text and responding as we're a team effort here. I think it's also important because another thing that was driving me is being very aware of the teaching and learning literature and the fact that we have a big onus on us to retain and progress students. For anyone that's in education, you'll be very, very aware of this pressure. And another thing is I just like to be different a bit because I get bored with regularity. So I looked to doing the teamwork and doing the debating assessment, and I think this is a really nice quote there that, and this was a great study, that in 2007 supported the idea that competitive teamwork or group work in assessment actually has the best learning outcome over solitary assessments. And there's this problem where people see a disjunct between I've got to get the content and the discipline knowledge and test that and make sure they've understood it. And skills is just this very, very different thing. And I don't really know how to assess that. I don't see it. I see it as a holistic thing that you can combine skill assessment, of course, in assessing course content and research and all of those things in a rich assessment. There's no reason they need to be separated in any way. This briefly is just a poster that was for the Graduate Attribute Symposium that was held. It was held really around the capital cities in Australia, I think, in 2009. And this was at Griffith University, and this is a poster of my assessment that I put up, and that's travelled around Australia and I think into Scotland as well. But I'll just break that down now. I've really covered the information there. What I want to do now is just walk you through the actual assessment items before I hand over to Peter about the technology. So how does this debate assessment work? Well, we make sure that it's very much a scaffolding learning process. So early in the course, we have an adjudication report that the students have to do that is worth 10%. And we mark that fairly easily because it's really like an early engagement with the course, getting some early feedback and getting some early assessment, and it gives them scaffolding for the actual debate. So they are learning the debating rules early on. We have a special guest lecturer, a Queensland Debating Adjudicator, come along in week 2 to talk